The Betrayal of L. Richard Bamberger, one of Wall Street's own. L. Richard Bamberger started working for a company called Fainstock and Company in 1929. Fahnenstock and Company. Now, Fainstock and Company actually is a company that's, I think it's still in business, but it's a subsidiary of Goldman Sachs or something like that now. Fainstock has a history since like 1830s, where they started out as like an apothecary selling some medicines and making glass jars and stuff for medicines. And then it turned into a trading house on Wall Street. And by the time my grandfather joined, it was pretty major. So what happened? It was bought out by Oppenheimer Holdings. Oppenheimer Holdings. So, even with the help of AI, trying to understand the situation, it's still very murky. Because it says, the AI even says, that Oppenheimer Holdings is not related to Oppenheimer Funds, but it's the owner of Oppenheimer Funds. Something like that. But then you look somewhere else, you find out that Invesco bought the Oppenheimer Funds, and Invesco just happens to be a 1 point something or other shareholder in the Bank of New York. It's like owning $693 million worth of shares in the Bank of New York, 1%. So, and the Bank of New York is extremely integrated and related with the Oppenheimer Holdings and Funds. So it's all very together and related, okay? And so if L. Richard Bamberger died in 1974 with $400,000 in the bank, you can go online, you can find it. If you follow the Standard & Poor's 500's performance from 1974 to now, and you had $400,000, let's say you invested no extra money, no year after year contributions, just keep it like that, and whatever it pays out, it pays out. It would have grown to $149 million in today's world. And that's not just one website. We're talking about several different websites, reputable websites. You can go find them. You can go do the numbers. You don't need me. So the bank in today's world has only $800,000. I told a bunch of lawyers, look, I'm not unreasonable. I know the bank had to pay commissions, the bank had to do this and that and the other thing. But notwithstanding, it's a big difference between 800,000 and 149 million. That's with no financial contributions year over year. Now, assuming you were a hot shot like my grandfather was, and his expectations of his trust growing, like he would have grown it, it's important to understand that not only would the trust have grown, it would have been able to pay all of the commissions and everything from whatever it was doing. So how come it didn't? Because either inept people or because they were just simply bilking the trust. We'll never know. Because why? Now the Bank of New York says they lost all those years of documents, the first years or something, or some years. They won't even tell me which years, in a warehouse fire. Wow, no way. So, but they didn't tell that to anybody else. And then in the same conversation, the lawyer started talking to me about, how much to indemnify me for it if I would accept $1 million extra. And I was like, no, sorry. So, if you assume that this trust should have grown like it should have, and you had a $10,000 a year contribution to make it grow, while it was making money for the beneficiaries and the trustees, then it should have grown to over $200 million. Again, I'm not unrealistic and don't have unrealistic expectations, you could say. But obviously, the difference between $800,000 and $200 million is very great. So maybe the bank should meet me halfway, right? I should get 100 million and more. Actually, they should meet me more than halfway, actually. So even if you consider the low end of 150 million, the bank should still pay me 100 million. Because since they don't have the documents, that's a breach of fiduciary, that's a breach of contract. That's not proper record keeping. And because they won't tell me exactly what's going on, they didn't report properly. Just saying. Sounds pretty fishy to me. Sounds like a bunch of chicanery to me. And go figure, I had to go tell that to one of these lawyers. And he's like, what's chicanery? I said, you don't know what chicanery is? Oh my God, I paid for my education. I'm not going to give it away to you for free. Go look it up. You know, you're a lawyer representing a bank. You know, go look up the word chicanery if you don't know what it means. Holy smokes. And he's sitting there trying to boonswoggle me out of hundreds of millions of dollars maybe. So I said, well, you know what? Meet me halfway. 100 million. Sounds like a good deal to me. You stole from my grandfather. You betrayed L. Richard Bamberger. Just that right there is $100 million. L. Richard Bamberger, Alavisas, reporting to you about most of the current situation with the Bank of New York and me for having tried to defraud me.